Hey, so hi everybody. This is Vanessa from Mixed Martial Arts and Crafts. This is the first time I'm broadcasting myself on the air, but I am introducing a new segment to the show, to the blog, where I'm going to be interviewing uh, young women that I admire who have faced some pretty hard things early on in life, and they've managed to turn it around with style and grace. And my very first guest is Dorkys from the stationery shop Porcupine Hugs.
Hi there.
Hello, Dorkys. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and a little bit about your cancer story.
Okay. Well, I'm a born and raised New Yorker, so I grew up in Uptown Manhattan. Uh, as for the cancer story, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in December 2012, and had to go through the whole lumpectomy and radiation and all that fun stuff. But aside from all that, I'm also a freelance writer, and I write for magazines and a few websites and things like that. So right now, I've been freelancing for the past 3 years. So it's been a long journey. The last year has been quite crazy because I launched Porcupine Hugs in November of 2012, and then like 2 weeks later, this madness happened. And I'm kind of glad I did it before I got diagnosed, because during the whole cancer thing, I was very stubborn about letting it change me in any way. Just because it sounds so cliche, like, oh, I changed my life because I got cancer. Like, no, I did it before all that happened. And maybe I focused a lot on designing just as a therapy to kind of escape from it, but I don't want to credit cancer to anything.
It is a fine line. I feel like, for me anyway, cancer made me the person I wanted to be, but at the same time, it was such a horrible experience that I'm a little, it is hard to say, yeah, that worst time of my life has made me so awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
cancer. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dr.
it's
Zimmer.
like, well, who's to say that I wouldn't be as awesome if I hadn't had to go through that, you know? Like, I probably would still be awesome.
So tell me more about using your designs as therapy. For me, I credit my knitting. I was constantly knitting to just keep myself somewhat sane. What was it like for you? I mean, did you really turn to your art as sort of an almost a therapy for yourself?
Um, well, I mean, also at the time, soon after surgery, I had gotten my income slashed by half. So I was only working part-time. So I also had all this extra time. And I wanted to focus on growing my business and creating and making it successful, rather than focus on, this really hard thing that I had to go through. So I mean, it was probably therapeutic in some subconscious way, but I wasn't
Right,
like, oh, I want to create art because it will, bring out all these emotions or anything like that. Like, I
right.
really just wanted my business to be successful. And there's only probably one card. I did a breast cancer card, and that's, a direct, obviously, link to
Right.
what I was going through at the time. But I was just focused on growing my collection. It was a lot more fun than focusing on, wow, I have to go to vacation every day.
I think what a lot of people don't realize about chemotherapy, and I'm assuming radiation is the same, is it's a really boring disease. I was bored a lot during
Yeah.
chemo. So I can definitely hear you as far as like you need things to do. Um, but I just think it's kind of amazing. How were you able to juggle a new growing business that comes with so much of its own stresses and not feeling well?
It was frustrating because, again, I am very stubborn, and I don't accept my limitations too easily. So
Mhm.
I actually, all through when I was just diagnosed, and I had to go, get MRIs and PET scans and mammograms. I was still working through all of it. I was still working, like 30, 40 hours a week, going to appointments and then finding a coffee shop just so I can file my stories and then going back for another appointment back to back. It was very, very exhausting. So I didn't want it to take over my life, you know?
Mhm.
Um, After I had surgery, like 2 days later, I was still typing away and, doing my shift, one-handed typing, because my other side was bandaged up. I didn't want it to have any impact, even though it did, you know, physically, emotionally. I was just so tired. Radiation is so exhausting,
Mhm.
you know? So it was hard to reconcile my wanting to get all this stuff done and be productive with my body just needed to rest. My body just needed to recuperate. So somehow I got through it. It was many months after radiation where my energy started picking back up.
Exactly. I think that's also people from the outside kind of forget, and I even forget that, it saps a lot out of you. Just because treatment's over doesn't mean that you're fine. It means that now you're in recovery. So how did you deal being so stubborn, but also needing to listen to your body and not end up in the hospital from exhaustion? How did you mentally reconcile the devil that says no, you got to work, 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 and the angel that's saying, or we need to nap?
I don't know if I've actually even gotten there yet. It's been over a year, and I still grapple with, you know, I got this long to-do list, and I'm so tired, but let me just get this done, and then maybe later I'll give myself. I'm still terrible at taking care of myself, which I say maybe that's what gave me cancer. Like I just don't listen to my body. I've never been very good at treating myself or taking care of myself, listening to, when I need to lunch. I know you're big on that. Just taking your lunch break and all that. But I mean, I slowly, very slowly, I've gotten a little better at, just giving myself time to rest, go to sleep early if I want to. Still haven't gotten the guiltless nap thing down though. That would be awesome.
I'm sure that's true for everybody, whether they've had chemo or not. It's very difficult to give in to the urge to nap.
hmm
So, tell me the story behind Porcupine Hugs. Where did you get the name from? How did it start?
Well, I started the idea of it back in like 2007 or
Mhm.
so. And friends have always told me like, oh, you should start your own card line, blah blah blah. But I've always just been focused on my writing career, and I always say that people who are really focused on their side passions are people who leave their day jobs. And I quite enjoy my career as a writer, and I don't want to give that up. So that's probably why I pushed it as long as I did.
Mhm.
Um, Eventually, I took a greeting card design class, being laid off for like the second time or so, and and then it wasn't until 2012, maybe like what was that, like 3 years later or so, that I finally just woke up one day. I was like, this is happening today. And I just registered my business and, you know, got 3 cards out for the holidays. And then that following March or so, I had like a full collection. So, yeah, so between November and March, I had to deal with you have breast cancer and you lost half of your income and you have to go through radiation and you have all these medical bills from your surgery you now cannot afford, and you also have a business. So it was very crazy, and it seemed very irresponsible to me. I was very much doubting myself that maybe that was not the time to create my own business. But if I didn't do it then, it's like, when? When would have been the right time? It would have never been the right time.
Hmm. That's something I'm learning about life. It's never the right time, ever.
Yeah, there's always something else that could be more perfect. You know, I'm very much like I like having all my ducks lined in a row, and this needs to happen before this, and before I even start any process. So I'm glad that I did it because then today I would have wished that I had started a year ago. I mean, you have to make that first step, no matter how crazy it seems, because it was crazy.
So, what was something you wished you had known or that somebody had told you about during this crazy period of business and life problems and health problems?
Probably
To
to not
maybe
be
tell
so,
your younger self.
probably not to be so harsh on myself. You know,
Mm.
just I've been repeating this quote, and I don't even know who said it. But repeating it to a few friends over the last couple of weeks that don't compare your beginning to anybody to someone else's middle,
Mm.
and it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remember that it's okay that you're still learning. It's okay that improvements will come. You just have to at least take a step. And when you see how far you need to go, or just realize that you're not there yet, it's a little overwhelming.
Mm.
It's a little overwhelming to realize that you don't have all the answers. I mean, I didn't know what I was going through. Like it was just craziness. And then the silly thing is, I've I've written about cancer so many times. As a magazine writer, I've profiled survivors. I've profiled, advancements in treatments and news and resources and all that. And then it was me. Then it was my turn to have to go through all these things that I had written about. And it's such a weird trip moment because I've always been like, be proactive about your health, women, and get checked and ask questions. And I didn't want to ask any questions. I just wanted to like just go through the motions and not think. I didn't want to think or feel. I was just tapped out. So it's weird when you keep preaching this thing and then when it's you, it's this whole nother monster. I mean, I don't know how it was for you if you were just proactive from the get-go.
For me, I would go through periods where I would try to read everything I could, and then I would be horrified at some of the statistics or even some people's personal stories of, well, chemo didn't work, so then I did radiation, and then 10 rounds of radiation later, my cancer was still growing, so then I had a stem cell transplant, and then I had a this. Then hearing horror stories like that just made me go, not me, this isn't happening,
Hmm.
I don't want to hear about it. But for me, 3, 4 years later, I feel very much a little bit more uncomfortable dealing with uncertainty. That's just life, and that's how it's always going to be. Nothing's going to fall into place, and I also have to practice what I preach as far as eating a better lunch and drinking a lot of water and the things that I do on my, yeah, well, sometimes taking naps, yeah, and just doing things and not letting things bother me so much as they used to do. Yeah, and I kind of thank cancer for that. Embracing my hair, embracing my baldness when I was bald. It was it was definitely a baptism by fire for me, is I guess the best way to put it, and that's what gave me the urge to start survival organs. Is just we gotta laugh about this stuff
Oh yeah. Oh
and make
yeah.
some sort of meaning out of what is inherently so meaningless as cancer. So tell me, what is up with what's new as far as Porcupine Hugs or your writing? Is there anything coming up that you can tell us about, especially with
Um,
Father's Day coming up?
well, I mean,
Valentine's?
I'm so I just went to the stationery show a couple
Mhm.
of weeks ago in May, which is this annual trade show that comes into town, and so my head's just so buzzing with seeing all the talent out there, and maybe sort of considering exhibiting for next year.
Mhm.
So that would be a huge undertaking, but that's what I've got my sights set on for the moment. And then, also I'm about to start working on calendars for 2015. It's so early, but I have to get it done by end of summer. So
Right.
yeah, just marketing and designing, and I started doodling again just for fun because
Mhm.
I think sometimes when you do a certain thing for a living, then you only see that in like how can I make money out of this? How can I promote myself with it? And it just stops being fun just for the sake of fun. So I've started doing a daily doodle and posting it on Instagram.
Can you tell us your shop URL and your Instagram handle, just so anybody's watching can
Sure.
follow you? And I'll link it in the
Um,
show notes.
well, on Twitter and Instagram, it's just Dorcas Famos, like my first and last name. And then my shop URL is porcupinehugs.etsy.com. I also have my own site, which is porcupine-hugs.com.
Awesome. Well, we are nearing about the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to sign off to keep this short and sweet. But I want to thank you for being my guinea pig on this, and and
Oh,
having a
thank
really good
you.
talk about art and health and starting a business at the worst possible
Yeah,
moment.
thank you for being such like a stay healthy and have your lunch and drink water. Like you're a little health cheerleader on Twitter and my handmade forum. So thank you and happy birthday. Like
Oh, thanks.
have a
Well,
great one.
thank you so much. And I guess we'll just end the broadcast here. So everybody go follow Dorkys on Instagram and look at her cute little doodles.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.